Alright, in this video I'm going to walk through a new app I've made called 240MP. It's basically a simple media player that works in concert with MPV to play back videos off of a Raspberry Pi, connected up to a CRT. So it's overall a pretty niche use case. But yeah, I wanted to make something simple that looked like a VCR to simply play back videos off of a Raspberry Pi. And that's what this does. I built it so that it's module based, and right now there's a local files module and a Plex module. I'll talk more about the module structure and what it can allow later in the video. So first, let me show you how the local files module works. This essentially was the reason for me building this. I was just looking for a very simple way to play video files on my Raspberry Pi on the CRT, and that's exactly what local files does. It looks at a specific folder on your Pi, and then any video files it finds in that folder, it displays them, and then you can click to play. It supports resume playback, so you can choose to resume or restart, and then jumps right into the playback experience. Now, the playback experience is built to be simple, so it allows you to switch audio and subtitle tracks. And because we're on a CRT, I've also had a direct toggle to allow you to crop the video to fill out the frame if that's something you prefer visually. So yeah, hopefully it works out to create a nice simple VCR-like playback experience. Fast forward is also just a simple button press, so as I hold the button here to fast forward, you can see it scrub through the video, and you could easily stop the video at any time to get back to the list. And when you stop playback, it retains where you were, so if I were to reopen that movie, it would bring me right back to where I was on that particular file too. Okay, on my TV folder here, I have a fun example to show off playlist support. Using an awesome cartoon called The Legend of Zelda from 1989, I have all the episodes here that I can play back individually. But I've also created a playlist here called playall.m3u. And that playlist just contains a reference to all of these episodes, so if I click to play that instead, it allows me to resume within the playlist itself. A good use case for this would be I have a season of a given show that I'm watching, and I want to make sure that when I come back to it, I always resume at the last episode I was in and at the time code I last stopped at. And a playlist allows you to do that. So if I click resume here, I'm going to resume playback episode 2 at around a 3-minute mark. And here we are. And once you're in a given playlist, you also have the option to navigate within that playlist as well. So clicking the left arrow would take me to episode 1, and clicking the right arrow would take me to episode 3. And that's a special feature unique to playlists. And this is pretty cool because for us we have this fun use case around Halloween where we create a bunch of Halloween movies and put them in a given folder, and this will allow us to basically play all of them in sequence just on a loop through local files on any TV. So this is a good time to open settings and show you how that might work. First, every module in 240MP has the ability to be enabled or disabled. If a module is enabled, it shows in the interface, and if it's disabled, then it doesn't. And then every module has its own distinct set of settings as well. So in this case, for local files, the primary setting here is your media directory. Here I've just chosen to set this to my home folder in a folder called media. So if I click that and then click use, that's the folder that it'll be set to. But on your Raspberry Pi, if you had mapped a drive from a network or inserted a USB stick and made sure it was available, then you could essentially browse that here and select that as your media directory as well. Next, we have an option called loop playback, and this ties directly into that use case I was describing before around Halloween. We would set this to be turned on, build a playlist of Halloween movies, and then essentially would just loop through that playlist over and over until we stop it. So using that, we can create some nice ambience around Halloween. The last setting for local files is resume playback, and there's 3 options: ask, always, and never. Ask does what we just saw, where it asks you if you want to resume playback or restart from the beginning. Always means it's always going to resume playback without asking, and then never is always going to restart playback without asking. So I usually leave it on ask because it gives me that option to choose, and it's just nice and simple that way. So while I was building out local files and thinking about the module structure, I also thought it would be pretty awesome to be able to watch my Plex library through the same interface. And because the Plex team provides a great API, it made it pretty straightforward to build out a Plex module as well. So this is actually a pretty full-featured Plex client, but it's a Plex client without any of the other distractions. It's just text-based, there's no images, and no other recommendations. It's basically just your Plex library styled like a VCR menu interface, which is exactly what I was looking for. So when I start the Plex module, you could see here it connects to my server and is logged in as me, and then it displays any libraries I've enabled, plus continue watching. And continue watching is going to show me things across those libraries. If I view contact, you'll see I could change the audio track that I want to hear when I start playing this video. And I could also choose the subtitle track I want to view. And then if I click resume, I get the option to start playback right away. What's cool about this is within the playback experience, I can also change these tracks. So if I change this to, let's say, the commentary track with Jodie Foster, I'll be able to listen to that audio directly, and then I can turn subtitles on as well, and then I can crop this to have the video fill out the frame on this TV. Granted, I know Contact wasn't filmed for 4:3, so this is a bit blasphemous, but I just wanted to show you that it is possible if you're okay with that look. And you could fast forward easily here as well. It's built just to work like a VCR, so pressing and holding to fast forward or rewind works just like you remembered. What's cool about this on Plex is wherever I stop playback in a movie, it's also stored back to the server. So if I were to pick up Contact on my phone or TV, it would be in the same exact position as we just left here as well. Okay, showing a TV example next, same concept. If it has subtitles, it'll give you an option to select, and if it doesn't, it won't. And you could also choose your audio tracks if it has multiple here. And then I'll just click resume to play this back. And Reboot was like a really fun Saturday morning cartoon back in the 90s that I love to watch. So just like experiencing on this TV again is super cool and super fun for me. So yeah, that's continue watching. The Plex module also allows you to browse your libraries directly. So I've went into movies here and then clicked on recommended. On your other Plex clients today, you're going to see something called hubs. And hubs are essentially a way for Plex to collect movies from your library into interesting recommendations. So in this case, top movies in Western, if I were to open this, it's going to show movies that Plex considers Western that it thinks I might be interested in watching. And it does that basically for all of these hubs. And it's automatic. So whatever your Plex server naturally generates will also show up here as it shows up in your Apple TV or Android TV clients. Library allows you to browse your entire library by letter. Collections will list all of the collections you've set up on your server. And playlists, the same thing. If you've set up a given playlist on your server, it's going to list those here too. So if I open this playlist is a list of my favorite movies. So with that, I can easily get to a list of my favorite movies right here, pick a movie, and then start playing it right from this list. Finally, categories are pretty neat too. These are also generated on your Plex server based off your metadata. So I could browse by genre, by year, by director, basically anything that Plex naturally allows you to browse by. It also gets returned here as something you could select from the list. So it becomes a really nice and elegant way to navigate your library on a CRT. TV libraries work the same, so if I go into TV here and then go into recommended, it's going to list a set of hubs. The only thing different about TV is that TV allows you to browse by episode or browse by show. So both of those are built to work here as well. You could also browse by season once you get into a given show, and all that's built to work out of the box. In addition to that, you have the ability to browse your entire library, browse collections, playlists you've created, categories, all that works the same as it does for movies. So I guess I should call out now from a module perspective, the Plex module today supports movie libraries, TV libraries, and then other video libraries. It doesn't support music libraries yet, and it's something I'll probably look to add in the future, but for now I just wanted to keep it simple and focus on video playback. So let's check out the current settings available for the Plex module. First, when you authorize this device against your Plex account, It pulls in the list of users for your account, so your primary user and then any managed users. And then the next setting here, Auto Sign-In, allows you to choose how those users are selected when you open the module. If it's on, it'll give you the value from the current user, and if it's off, it'll give you the option to select which user to browse as. For server, once you authorize this device against your Plex account, it'll pull in any server that you own, as well as servers that are shared with you as well. And then for a given server you've selected, you have the option here in libraries to choose which libraries you want to display. So in this case, I'm displaying movies, classes, and TV shows. And I have 4K and 3D movies turned off, primarily because it's a CRT and they probably wouldn't work that well. But it's also a CRT running on a Raspberry Pi, so 4K movies are probably out of the question. I did test using them, and for the most part they didn't work because it's a Raspberry Pi. But this next setting here, if you set this to say like 720 or 480, and then put the load on your server to transcode those, then they could work on this setup as well. So it's an option if you wanted to try that. My recommendation is to stick to 1080p and below, especially if you're on a Raspberry Pi 4, and you should be good to go. The next setting here is resume playback, and similar to local files, you have always and ask as options. If it's always, then it'll always resume from where you left off, and if it's set to ask, then it'll basically ask you if you want to resume or give you the option to start from the beginning. So it's nice to just have this set to ask and then you get that option. And then the last setting is needed because Plex requires you to authorize against your account to use it on any given client. Because of that, I also wanted to make sure there was an option to deauthorize as well. So if I click sign out here, what this will actually do is log me out and then deauthorize this client from my Plex account. And now if I go back into the Plex module, you'll see we're presented with a traditional pin-auth via Plex.tv link. So I'm just going to log into Plex link on my computer where I'm already logged in, and then enter this pin. And within a few seconds, we should basically be good to go. So now I click on my name, the server I want to use, and we're back up and running. What's also cool about this is that it's connected to your authorized devices on your server. So if I refresh my list of authorized devices here, you can see the top one now is 240MP. And if I choose to deauthorize that from my computer instead, and then try to open Plex, it's going to ask me to log in again. So with this, you always have control either on your server or directly on the Raspberry Pi if you're logged in or logged out, which is nice and secure at the end of the day. So let's log back in, and we should be good to go in a few seconds. And there we go. Perfect. Back to where I was. So that's the Plex module. It's just a really simple text-based VCR-style Plex client at the end of the day. And for me, that's something I was looking for because I wanted something really simple and distraction-free to watch my favorite movies on a CRT. And that's all this does. Okay, I've brought up modules a bunch so far. So essentially what that means is that each one of these are self-contained. So all of the code and backend for Plex to connect to its API, for local files, all of the code for browsing folders, all of that is self-contained in the modules themselves. And if we wanted to add a module for like Jellyfin or maybe a RetroArch module, I could structure a new module, build it to that specific purpose, and then add it to 240MP. So over time, my hope is to add other things that I'd like to use. So I might add like a RetroArch module to be able to play some games, or I just set up a Jellyfin server recently, so I'll likely explore making a Jellyfin module as well. And because 240MP overall is using MPV for playback, any media playback I need in a module can be supported through MPV directly. That way, 240MP can be purely focused on browsing, navigation, things like that. Alright, so the last thing to show off is just the color schemes because they're kind of fun. You'll notice we've been looking at video 1 the whole time. This is basically meant to evoke the style of the VCR you might connect to your TV on the video 1 input with that like light blue background and light blue coloring. Next we have late night as an option here. This was styled after like Plex's color scheme with that yellow and dark background. Synthwave, which is purples and light blue. One of my favorites is terminal because, like on a CRT, if you're looking up close, these scan lines look amazing. And you know, if you remember in any of the Alien movies, anytime they're looking at a screen that has like beautiful terminal look, that's essentially what this was meant to evoke. The next color scheme is pretty bright, so fair warning. It's called T120, and it's meant to evoke the color scheme of the T120 VHS tape box art from back in the day. And then we also support custom color schemes. I created a custom JSON format, and you could drop a JSON file in the configuration directory with your own hex values for each of the core color tokens, and then create your own color scheme as well. So yeah, that's 240MP. All the code is open and free on my GitHub, which I'll link down in the description below. I do plan to play around with some additional modules in the future, and if you have an idea for one and would like to contribute, please definitely reach out. This is really great for a CRT setup, and it also scales for use over HDMI as well, so if you wanted to use it on a modern TV, that works too. You could set this up basically to boot directly into this software, and then when you press your power button on your remote or press shutdown and quit, it'll shut the device down as well. So yeah, it's a nice and simple setup. Thank you for checking it out. Hope you liked it, and take care.